Welcome to Gentle Parenting Abroad. I'm Kristen, and today's video is sponsored by KVJ Marketing, the premier marketing partner for small to medium businesses. At Gentle Parenting Abroad, we share a lot about our life experiences and recommendations on parenting. While we're constantly learning from a variety of resources, we wanted to bring in an expert we trust, Meghan Rogers. Meghan is a licensed professional counselor focusing on self-compassion. Thanks so much for joining us on Gentle Parenting Abroad, Meghan.
Of course, happy to, Kristen.
Yes, small fact, Meghan and I used to work at the Normal Public Library back when I was an undergrad. She was actually my boss, so it was pretty cool to have an awesome person be a positive role model. So we are so grateful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And how would you define gentle parenting from a psychological perspective?
Okay, so I kind of think of gentle parenting as being all about the connection between the parent and the child. So gentle parenting focuses on empathy. It focuses on like understanding between parent and child. And it really sort of moves away from the heavy-handed, like punishments, yelling, all of that, and just really focuses on helping a child feel safe and cared for.
What are the key benefits of gentle parenting for a child's emotional and psychological development?
Yeah, so when I think about that, one of the first things that I think of is attachment, right? So many people start out as kiddos who have insecure attachment, right? So parents' affection feels inconsistent. So they might get anxious. They might get like needing to be in relationships like desperately, right? Or parents might come across too strong and then they wind up avoiding it and they don't want to be in any relationship. Right. So attachment is a huge part, I think, of gentle parenting, is just like learning like this is a safe, like relationships are safe. You can count on them. They're here for you. They feel good, right? So that's a big part of it. I think also like self-regulation. So being able to control emotions is huge because kiddos are learning all along the way, like this is how we work through things. So instead of being yelled at, they're being talked to. So really, I think also like self-esteem. So, you know, I'm a therapist. So many people in my office come in and they say, hey, I have terrible self-esteem. So this is one way to kind of fight that, to get ahead of that and make sure that they grow up, you know, to be people who are happy with themselves.
When do these patterns in relationships start to show?
You know, it's really hard. I'm not actually sure about the answer to that. I know for sure that it starts by like, maybe by 2 years old, you're already seeing attachment. And in fact, like our brains develop so much in those first couple of years. Our brains get wired for the way that we're going to look at the world for the rest of our lives. So anything that you do later is like really having to work hard to make changes. If you do it early, then you just get set up that way and you don't have to like grind through all these changes later. You don't have to come to a therapist. You don't have to read a bunch of self-help books.
Right.
You just feel it.
Right. And we've seen a lot of research online that they say that from 0 to 5 years old, so from birth to 5 years old, you have that crucial time to connect, to empathize, to communicate, to show respect, to be on that same page with these kiddos. And then after 5, they are their own person. And so you just hope that all of the things that you have taught and continue to teach are instilled in them, or at least they know to come back to you as a guidance and a support system.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I read a really interesting book that talks about how we can be gardeners or we can be carpenters for our kids. Carpenters want the kids to be like exactly how they want them. They want the right angles. They want to make them what they want. Gardeners give them this like natural, they give them what they need and let them grow. And so that's so much healthier. The kids wind up so much happier. And it's exactly what you're saying. Like they are set up then to sort of like carry that forward.
Exactly. And it's like you're not putting them into a cookie cutter mold. You are allowing them to be who they are.
Exactly.
Do you believe gentle parenting effectively sets boundaries and discipline while maintaining respect for the child? Why or why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good question because I bet that's on a lot of people's minds, right? Is like,
Yeah.
oh, we're just going to let the kids do whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
But really, you can absolutely set boundaries in ways that children will like respect, right? So if you punish kids, then they learn to be scared of you when you're around, when you're looking, right? And
Yes.
then they get out in the world and you're not around and you're not looking and they, they do whatever they want, right?
Right.
But with gentle parenting, you explain these rules to them. These rules feel like, and they're not even like I hate to even say rules, but these
Yeah.
boundaries, they feel like this is what I do to sort of get along in the world, right? It's like learning. This is how I get along in the world. And so that's so much better than the idea of somebody's going to be mad at me if I do this.
Right.
So you set those boundaries. And even more than that, you teach kids this is a way that you can set boundaries with others in the future. Like you're really modeling for them because you can't go to work and like yell at your coworker to not do something, right?
Right.
You need to talk to them about it. You need to sort of like work together with them. And that's what parents are doing with gentle parenting, and they're teaching their kids to take that forward.
What is a example of a boundary that you would set that people might understand?
Let's see. So one boundary that I set sometimes with my daughter, so actually we just did this the other day. So she's 13, right? She texted me something. She wanted me to turn off her or turn on her screen time, right? She texted me that, and then immediately she's texted me 3 question marks, and I was like, that didn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
Like it felt so rushed, and so I texted her back and I said, hey, I can tell that you're feeling really impatient about this, but I want you to think about how that last text made me feel. And so she came back and she's like, I'm sorry. And then she sort of was like, well, I was just saying it, because I felt like it would be boring without that. And I was like, well, I understand that it made me feel rushed, And so now we've had this conversation. I've set this boundary. This is how I want to be treated, but I haven't said it in a way that's like, you have to treat me this way. I've said it in
Right.
a way that's like, you want to treat me this way.
Some critics argue that gentle parenting may lead to permissive parenting. What are your thoughts on this concern?
Yeah, again, great question, because I do think that that's on a lot of people's mind, right? We're just going to let these
Yeah.
kids run wild. Um,
Right.
so permissive parenting is high on warmth, just like gentle parenting is, or authoritative parenting. So gentle parenting is very close to authoritative parenting, where we're high on warmth, high on boundaries, right? Permissive parenting, high on warmth, not so high on boundaries. And
Right.
so really it's very, very different from permissive parenting because boundaries are so intentional. They're so at the center of this. We're just enforcing the boundaries or teaching the boundaries in totally different ways than like an authoritarian parent who's high on boundaries, low on warmth.
Right.
Yeah, so gentle parenting is really in the sweet spot there.
How does gentle parenting impact a child's ability to develop resilience and independence?
All right, yeah. So when I think about children having independence, I think about a secure base. So it's kind of like ironic that for kids to feel like they can be safe and can venture out, they need to have that secure base. They need to have that connection. So you need to have the connection in order to move out into the world, because then they can feel like mom is always there for me. Like I feel that connection wherever I go. She's always going to be there as backup, so I can take some like risks. And I don't mean risks like risky behavior. I more mean risks like I'm going to try out for the play, right? Or
Right.
yeah, or I'm going to like try to make friends and stuff like that, because I know that mom is always there to support me. I feel her presence, or dad. I don't want to leave dad's out. Dad is there to support
Totally.
me too. So my parents are here. They're in my corner. So I can go out and do whatever else I'm going to do.
Another question. Are there any long-term studies or research findings that support the effectiveness of gentle parenting?
So I don't know a lot about research about gentle parenting specifically, but when we were talking about like authoritative parenting, so the different parenting styles, overwhelmingly authoritative parenting has the best outcomes. Like kids
Mhm.
do so much better with authoritative parenting. They feel safe, they feel cared for. It's interesting that with permissive parenting, like, high on warmth but low on boundaries, kids actually wind up feeling like my parents don't care, so it's like they feel the warmth, but they feel like they just don't even care what I do.
Yeah.
So kids need those boundaries to feel safe. And so, yeah, so authoritative parenting all the way, definitely the best outcomes. Kiddos are so much better with like self-regulation and, all of that good stuff, empathy, self-compassion, all of it.
Right. And they get to learn this stuff now. They get to learn that in their wheelhouse now, where, when they get to kindergarten or first grade or second grade, they have the connection and the experience to use it in the classroom, to use it on the playground, to use it wherever they may be.
Exactly.
And it's such an
Exactly.
advantage. It's such an advantage.
Absolutely. And you mentioned like going forward, and I think about these gentle boundaries, right? And I think about how kids who have parents who yell at them grow up to be people who tolerate being yelled at in their
Yep.
relationships. So I'm going to grow up and I'm going to have a husband who, yells at me if I don't keep the house clean.
Right.
Who wants that for their kid, right?
Right.
So with these gentle boundaries, people are used to being treated well, and so they're going to look for that in their relationships too.
That's my goal in all of this.
Yes, exactly.
Can gentle parenting be effective for children with behavioral challenges or neurodivergence? I'm sorry, neurodivergency, such as ADHD or autism?
Absolutely. Yes. It's going to be harder, but it's going to be harder to parent those kids in with any parenting style. It's just going to be a
Right.
higher level of difficulty. You're going to have to really step up your game and be, kind to yourself about it too. But yeah, I mean, kids with autism. So when I was talking about, saying to my daughter, like, this, think about how that made me feel. And then I tell her explicitly, it made me feel rushed, right? So that's really important for kids with autism because they don't pick up on implicit rules as much. They
Right.
don't sort of like watch and understand, oh, that's going to make mom feel rushed. So when I say, hey, that made me feel rushed, that is great for a kid with autism because they can then like store that rule away. They can
Right.
understand that and put that away instead of having to try to like figure everything out. So gentle parenting, which, really talks to kids about this is why we do these things. This is how that felt, all of that. That's so good for kids with autism. And then ADHD. I have ADHD. I have
Me
so
too.
high five.
Woo!
And so many of my clients have ADHD and don't know it, right? So
Yes.
now I screen every single person who comes into my office for ADHD because so many people who are depressed and anxious have it. And it's
Yeah.
because they grow up feeling like they're messing up all the time, right?
Yep.
And
Yes.
and so every time they mess up, it's shame, shame, shame. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. So
Right.
gentle parenting, which takes that shame out of it, that's like supportive. Like, how can I help you? Ooh, that didn't go so well. Like, what kind of system can we put in place to make this go better?
Right.
So it's not just like, oh, why don't you bring your like permission slip home? It's like, oh man, what do you think we could do next time, to make sure that permission slip gets home?
How can you do it better?
Exactly. Yes.
Megan, if you don't mind me asking, because recently in the last 5 years, I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Mhm.
When were you diagnosed and what signs led you to seeing if you were a diagnosis of ADHD?
Oh, I can talk about ADHD all day. Let's do another one on
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So I was diagnosed like literally in the last 2 months, I want to say.
Okay.
But I kind of self-diagnosed maybe like 8 years ago, was my guess. I read an article that talked about how ADHD looks different in women, and I was just like, whoa, that's me. Like it
Yeah.
was so incredible. Just like the forgetfulness. I'm so forgetful, so scattered. Um,
Yep.
and so I grew up thinking like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Like, and I felt it like as a personal, like moral failing kind of thing. Like, oh, I'm terrible. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, so it's like a really hard way to grow up. So like, I've heard someone say that the diagnosis is treatment. And I think that that's so true because once you know you have ADHD, you're like, hey, my level of difficulty is just higher. So it makes
Yes.
sense that I'm struggling here. And it's
Yes.
not because I'm a bad person. It's not because I'm not trying. It's because I have ADHD. My level of
Right.
difficulty is higher.
Right. You know, I have ADHD, my husband does not. And there are times where he will watch me walk around the kitchen and I have a cabinet open and then I'm holding a towel because it has to go back into the bathroom. And then I have shoes in my hand because they have to go into the closet. And he'll
Right.
stop me. He's like, what's going on? I was like, you know, this is just a Wednesday. Like, this is what I'm dealing with.
Right.
But that is the beauty. Like when you are self-aware, everything opens up, everything kind of just it doesn't click right away, but you have that next step to be like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. How can I make this better? What can I do to have everything fall into place?
Right. And how can I be gentle with myself while I do that?
Yes. Because it's so easy. And I think that's a lot with society is we just constantly are on top of each other, on top of ourselves, to do better, to be the better person, you know, like it's just, it's hard to not give yourself grace because personally for me, I never had grace in my childhood, but you know, that's the whole point of gentle parenting is to realize that you made a mistake or you have an issue or a problem and you can work through it to make it better.
Exactly. Well, and you mentioned like you know, your childhood was not a gentle parenting childhood.
No.
You are breaking cycles there. You know, you are breaking like generations of, you know, kind of trauma with a little t. You know, it's really hard
Totally.
to grow up in families that are not gentle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, this whole style of parenting saved my marriage because my husband and I are now able to communicate in a respectful and calm way. Because
Mm-hmm.
growing up, I was in a house where whoever yelled the loudest won. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not healthy or how you should do it. So
Right.
I'm very grateful that, you know, it's parenting, but it's also a marriage or a spouse, talking with a spouse or talking to a colleague or like even though there is a core and there is a root, it stems onto so much more in your life that it just makes it so much healthier.
Right. And there's skill building involved, right? You're figuring out how do I say things in a way that people are going to hear and understand and take in.
Absolutely.
So, of course, that's going to transfer all over the place.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
What are some tips for adults who have ADHD but don't want to take medicine?
Yeah, so I've taken a couple different medications. I've never felt like they helped me that much. I think
Same.
a lot of it, yeah, a lot of it is the self-compassion. You know, a lot of it is just understanding like, hey, this is going to happen. And then when you have that, it's easier to be like, what strategies do I need? Right. So, like, I have an Apple Watch I cannot live without. Like, I don't know
Okay.
what I would do if I didn't have like a million reminders. So, like every hour it goes off to tell me that I have a client there, you know, because
Okay.
otherwise I'm going to be sitting at my desk and I'm going to be like, oh, there's a client that's been waiting for me for 10 minutes, you know? So
Right.
like just sort of recognizing without judgment, this is something I need.
Yeah.
I need these strategies in place and it's, you know, not because there's anything wrong with me.
Yeah. I found that putting a box in the central part of our house, so the kitchen, of
Mm-hmm.
things that don't belong in the kitchen and
Mm.
putting the things in the box so at the end of the night I take my box and then I distribute to where those items need to be.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
I feel like it just takes so much time. I get so much time back.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes it easier because when you're parenting, you're constantly boom, boom, boom. You don't have time to go from one room to three rooms to put socks away.
Right, exactly. Yes. Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah, it just a helpful tip.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how can parents practicing gentle parenting ensure they are still fostering respect and responsibility in their children?
Yeah. So I feel like it's almost like inherent in gentle parenting. Like I'm going to say it is inherent in gentle parenting. Like when you are showing your kids respect, like they are
Yeah.
going to learn respect. They're going to learn respect for others. And not because they fear them or they're going to get in trouble, but because we're sort of all in this together, you know? So it's
Yeah.
this feeling of like, I want to do what's good for others as well as for myself. And I think that is a lot of respect, right? You know, you're treating
Yes.
others the way you want to be treated. Um, so I think it's just baked into gentle parenting to teach that. And then responsibility too, like, so kids learn, you know, very early, um, like if parents yell at kiddos, right? About cleaning their room, let's say kids learn cleaning my room sucks. Like
Yeah.
cleaning my room comes with yelling, comes with all of this. And so then they just want to avoid the whole thing, right? They don't want to clean their room then, or they don't want to do their schoolwork because their schoolwork they're only doing because their parents are yelling at them about it.
Right.
So learning like this is something that I can do and that I want to do really is a great way to foster responsibility.
Absolutely. And we always say monkey see, monkey do. So whatever I say or do, my kids would say and do. There are some times where I will say an oopsie word, and my 4-year-old will hold on to that oopsie word for weeks. And I reflect back and I'm like, well, Kristen, who did it? You did it. So, there's a lot of growth and a lot of correction in that sense. There's also times where my kindergartner, she is an old soul. She comes off the bus sometimes, and I always reflect on the from the bus stop to the walk home. I'm like, how's your day? And she's like, you know what? Some of these kids didn't have their listening ears on. It was a hard day. And I'm like, right then and there at 6 years old, I'm like, wow, she gets it. Like she understands it. And so then we kind of unfold, like, you're allowed to have hard days. You're allowed to have bad days. It's just that next day, can you do it better? What can you do to make that not happen again?
Right. Oh, and I love the non-judgment in that. They
Yes.
didn't have their listening ears on. It's not condemning them. It's just saying, hey, that's the fact it wasn't happening for them today.
Right. Right. And we don't like to say, was it a good day or a bad day or anything like that, or were you good or were you bad? Even with dropping off at grandma's house, like, oh, make sure you're good. We're always good. We're
Yeah.
always good.
Oh,
There's
I love
no
that.
reason to, yeah, there's no reason to put on a label like that. Did we have our listening ears on when grandma told us to take our shoes off? Probably not. But we know next time after that, those big emotions, what are we going to do when she says, hey, we're coming home from the park? What are we going to do when we get in the house? We're going to take our shoes off and we're going to do it better. What are the potential downsides or challenges of gentle parenting, and how can they be addressed?
Yeah, so this is a really good question. I think that the biggest downside is not for the kids, it's for the parents. So I think that parents who want to be gentle all the time might not be able to be gentle all the time, and so you're going to have really high standards for yourself. But kids' behaviors can be triggering, right? Like
Yeah.
we have evolved to be triggered by kids crying. It's going
Right.
to get under our skin because it's supposed to get under our skin so that we do something about it. And then also like triggers from our childhood. I got yelled at for this, so when you do this, it freaks me out a little bit. I don't like kids like running at the pool because, oh boy, if I had run at the pool, I would have gotten yelled at, and that's all connected, right? So we're
Absolutely.
gonna get triggered. We're going to, walk out of situations feeling like, oh, I didn't do the best I could. And parents who are doing gentle parenting are the ones who are probably most critical of themselves because they're so intentional and they feel so much like I have the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So they're going to be the ones who are like, I want to parent perfectly. And there's no way to parent perfectly. You cannot
Nope.
get out of parenting without having made any mistakes. It just doesn't happen. So self-compassion, self-compassion, self-compassion. Like you are going to slip up and that's okay. The most important thing is that you come back to your kiddo after that and you say, hey, I talked in a way that I wish that I hadn't. I'm going to work on that, and I am sorry that I did that. And I bet that didn't feel very good to you, did it?
Absolutely. And it's always apologizing,
Mm-hmm.
always coming back full circle, because we are human. We are allowed to make mistakes. I always say to my kids, the old Kristen's going to come out. I have worked so much on my inner child and went through all the growth with therapy. But at the end of the day, one little yell or one little cry might slightly alter my thinking process, and
Mm-hmm.
it goes rogue. Like we can't be perfect.
Right.
So I love that. Yes, it's important to have self-awareness. It's important to self-reflect. My husband and I every night kind of go through what our wins and our losses.
Mm-hmm.
But we always give each other grace because we're doing it, we're aware of it, we know that it works.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, you're allowed to have good days, you're allowed to have bad days.
Right. And I truly believe that everyone is doing the best they can in every
Yes.
moment. Like if you could have done better in that moment, you would have. You did the best that you could. Your kiddo did the best that they could. We're all just sort of like, I had one client say to me that they heard someone say like, your mom is on the planet for the first time too. You know, this is your mom's first time on the planet too. And that's so true. This is our kids
Yeah.
are making mistakes. We're making mistakes. This is our first go round, you know?
Yeah. How does gentle parenting influence a child's emotional regulation skills compared to more traditional discipline methods?
Yeah, so it does wonders, honestly, like partly because a lot of our like emotion regulation, like when we have big emotions, we're upset about something, a lot of that comes is triggered by shame.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm really upset because I feel like there's something wrong with me. And so I don't feel okay right now. Whereas kiddos who have had gentle parenting, they don't have that same shame. So they don't have this huge response of like, there's something wrong with me. This is not okay. I'm not okay right now. So that's part of it is just that like they've grown up feeling okay about themselves. And so they don't have to freak out on themselves. Another part is that their nervous systems are literally like wired in a way that keeps them calmer. You know, they are wired to see the world in a different way than kiddos who have been yelled at.
Right.
They're just, their nervous systems are different. And that's something that is really hard to teach later, right? You have to undo a lot of stuff to rewire a nervous system. Like you can come to therapy and learn a lot, but a lot of the times it's like, I know it, but I don't feel it. And that's
Right.
like, my nervous system is just not catching up on this. So that's so good to wire them that way from the start. And then also like gentle parenting helps kids work through their big emotions when they have them. So a lot of the times kids get yelled at for big emotions, you know, I'll give you something to cry about, or, you know,
Right.
go to your
Now's
room.
not the time to cry.
Exactly, exactly. Or parents will be like, oh, you're not, you know, you're not upset right now. You shouldn't be upset right now. And so
Right.
kids just like don't learn about their emotions. They don't learn how to handle it. They don't get the skills, you know, but gentle parenting gives coping skills, it gives strategies, it gives all that
Yeah.
good stuff. The kids can start using at an early age instead of having to come into my office and use it, you know, slowly and, you know, work it. And, you know, these kids are like natives at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they pick up so much. Resilience is amazing.
Yes.
We just went to go visit my family in Los Angeles, and my nephew was having a birthday party. And the birthday cake was sitting there on the table, and it was a beautiful birthday cake. I know a lot of kids are into gaming. I don't know if it was Minecraft or whatever. And so one of my daughters saw the cake, and she thought it was, in her perspective, she thought it was fake. So
Okay.
she put her finger in the cake. Well, the birthday kid sees this and is just like, dude, that's my cake.
Mhm.
And he gets upset and he starts to cry. And
Mhm.
everybody goes at that birthday kid. The birthday kid is older than my daughter.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, whatever. But from his perspective, it's like, this is my birthday cake. It is a big deal. So,
Mhm.
of course, in the moment when we're singing happy birthday and we're ready to slice the cake, we have a 6-year-old who is reading the room and realizing, I messed up. I totally messed up. I just wanted to know if it was real.
Mhm.
And I wanted to put my finger in it. And then we have the 8-year-old who's just like, I can't believe my birthday cake is ruined. And
Right.
of course, it's the worst possible scenario. We have people on the cake. We are singing happy birthday. People are ready to get their forks out and start eating. But this is like a learning education moment. And
Mhm.
so we did the best we could with, hey, we told our daughter he didn't like that. And then we reassured him, we are so sorry that we hurt your feelings. That wasn't our intention. We made a mistake. And
Right.
so in those moments, those are the teaching moments. You're never going to have a moment of, oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
scraped your knee and X, Y, and Z happened, and you don't have an audience, and it is, an okay moment to learn. But I guess what I'm getting at is these lessons happen at any blink of a moment.
Right.
You have to constantly be on guard to realize that, and to have them absorb all the tools and strategies that we constantly are teaching and educating to fix it or make it better.
Right. And you helped with like really positive lessons. He was also learning a lesson that my feelings are not okay, you know?
Exactly.
And so they're going to learn all kinds of lessons. We want them to be the positive ones, right? We don't want it to be like, it's not okay to feel my feelings, because then you just shove those feelings down and then you don't feel them until they're here, right? And
Right.
then you explode them out, instead of like, oh, I don't feel so good. I'm going to like honor this feeling and be curious about it and work through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hope for his next birthday, nobody puts a finger in his cake.
Me too.
Okay. Is there a difference in how gentle parenting affects younger children versus teenagers? We kind of touched on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all one piece, right? So what you do when they're children is, very apparent when they're teenagers. So of course, gentle parenting is great for kiddos, right? Great for the little ones, but it's also like so important for that relationship with your teens, because
Yeah.
your teens know, hey, it's safe to come to mom. It's safe to come to dad. They're going to help me. So teens mess up,
Yeah.
and the stakes get higher and higher as they get older. Even like your adult children or your college age children, like they're making mistakes all, that are higher stakes. So to have, children who know I can come to mom or dad if something bad happens and they're going to help me, they're in so much better shape.
Yeah.
And then also just the quality of that relationship. Like people think, oh, teenagers are so tough. Teenagers don't have to be tough. You can have
Oh,
really like loving, caring relationships with your kids. Like my daughter's 13. She still holds my hand when we walk into a store,
I love
She
that.
still snuggles on the couch with me. And it's because we have that good connection. We're not adversaries like you are when you're punishing and pushing.
Yeah.
And we've had very open conversations about things like sex and drugs and all of that are respectful, that are age appropriate, that help her see like what the dangers are, what dangers have been blown up, because
Mhm.
then they're going to trust you. If you say like all drugs are bad all the time, then they go and they, smoke some weed and then they're like, this wasn't bad. I don't trust mom anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And my husband and I always say, we want our kids to learn it from us, because
Yes.
when you learn it from us, we have the control of the age appropriateness of what is said, of what we need to explain. If there is a response question, how can we build off of it? Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my kid to learn something from a 13-year-old at school. I
Right.
want my kid to know that from here. And like you said, to come back and ask questions, should there be any?
Right. And then you can talk about like drinking isn't all bad. You're probably going to do it in college. Like this is what I talked about with my daughter. Like you're probably going to want to do it in college and it's not all bad. This is what is bad about drinking. When you lose control, when all of that stuff. So drinking itself like is okay because she's probably going to do it anyway, honestly. So you want her to know like it's okay when you're old enough. But you just have to look out for these things, and then
Right.
she's set up so much better than just like drinking is wrong, never drink, and then she goes and drinks and she doesn't have any of the strategies or any of the guidance that you could have given her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it snowballs into something more.
Right, exactly.
How should parents practicing gentle parenting handle situations where immediate obedience is necessary, such as safety concerns?
Yeah, so I will say the only times that I have yelled at my kids were when I was scared, that something bad was going to happen. So running into a street, things like that. So, when it's immediate safety, like do what you got to do to get their attention. And the thing is too, like when kids are not used to hearing you yell and then they hear you yell, like they pay attention, right?
Yeah.
So that kid is not going to run in that street because they're like, whoa, what just happened with mom?
Right.
Like, you just yelled
Right.
at me? This is not usual. And so you're going to really get their attention. And
Right.
then, like we said before, the important part is going back to them and saying, hey, like I was really, I had a lot of emotions come up for me just then. I was really scared, but I wish that I had been able in that moment to talk to you in, a more, appropriate way. I bet that didn't feel very good for you, did it?
Right. I love that you circle back. I love that you follow up and you explain that situation, because in the moment you can't explain it. It's, yes or no, mom or dad are leading the way, and then afterwards we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Mhm.
How does gentle parenting align with different cultural or societal expectations of parenting?
Hmm. That's a really good question. So I think that we have, like, in our society, we have this idea that you are completely responsible for yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You are responsible for your behavior at all times. So if you're bad, then you're bad. If you're acting bad, that's on you. And so there isn't as much of this idea that, oh, she's doing that because she doesn't know how to do it better. It's just like, oh, that's a bad kid. You see
Right.
it crying in the grocery store and you're like, okay, so
Right.
yeah, so there's lots of judgment. Excuse me, lots of judgment in our society. So I think that it sort of clashes with that. Gentle parenting is, the opposite of that. It's very like, we're going to work through this together. You're inherently good. Anything that's going on for you that's bad is because of the situation, because of your history, because of what your genetics, whatever it is.
Right.
So that's very different than society. And society really wants us to get our kids in line. Society wants those like right angles. They want us to be the carpenter parent.
Yeah.
So that can be hard too. So definitely, it interacts in that way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you got to remember, you can't keep up with the Joneses. Everybody is going to go on their own path at their own pace.
Mhm.
And like you were saying, that kid in the store, my husband and I are so self-aware of our emotions and the psychology of gentle parenting, where when we see that kid on the floor, it's like, oh, we've been there. We know that
Yeah.
red moment. We're all having those emotions. We probably
Hmm.
did it last week. Like, you
Right.
know, there's no room to judge, because you don't know what that person is going through. And honestly, it's just heavy negativity to hold on to.
Right.
There's
Mhm.
no reason to just perseverate on it.
Exactly. And when you're intolerant of other people, you imagine that they are also being intolerant of you. So if you're having a lot of judgment on that parent in the grocery store, then when your kid is having a problem, you're thinking, oh, everybody around here, because we kind of think everybody thinks the way we do, right?
Yeah.
So if we're judgmental, we assume that other people are judgmental of us. When we're generous to others, we assume that they're being generous with us as well.
Yes. And I've noticed that when you do show that kindness, people want to be around you. People want to be
Mhm.
around kind people.
Yes, of course.
It makes it easy.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to parents who are trying to balance gentle parenting with external pressures from family, school, or society?
Oh man, yeah. So, first, I would say to be aware that some parents, especially like grandparents, so like my parents, your parents, grandparents, can feel that your gentle parenting is like a condemnation of their parenting, right? You did it wrong. And they can feel
Mhm.
that, so they can have really strong feelings against gentle parenting because it makes them feel like, oh, I did it wrong, I don't like that feeling, I don't want to think about it, I'm going to push it away, I'm going to be angry at gentle parenting. So it can, like, to be aware that those kinds of dynamics are at work, right? um, but then just to be firm, to set, I mean, really gentle parent your parent, right? To
Yes.
set those firm, kind, gentle boundaries,
Right.
and to be consistent. So to just say, I'm sorry you feel that way, I feel differently. They keep going at you. I'm sorry you feel that way, I feel differently. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not really, or even like, I'm not really open to feedback on this right now. Let's
Absolutely.
talk about something different.
Absolutely. And I know for a personal experience, the four of us, my husband and my kids, we all get together if there's an issue, a family meeting. And there
Mhm.
was one time where grandma was around, and grandma had to be a part of the family meeting, and we sat down, and it felt good, because I wanted to show everybody there that this is hard, and we can have a hard conversation, and we are still going to love each other at the end, but we are going to put our feelings on the table in a respectful way and communicate what we need. So then that way, if this happens again, we just do it better.
Right.
And there are times where it might be uncomfortable because we've never done this. I think a lot of embarrassment is instilled in me, a lot of embarrassment
Mhm.
because you never had it and you don't know how to fix it or get around it.
Right.
But when we do these family meetings, I feel like the embarrassment is just off the table, and it's a free safe space
Mhm.
to kind of get your feelings off your chest.
Yeah, I love that. I love a family meeting. That's great.
How can people get in contact with you if they were interested in your services?
All right. So I am in Bloomington Normal, Illinois. So if people live in Bloomington Normal, Illinois, and they'd like to see me as a therapist, they can, you can just Google Meghan Rogers Bloomington, and my Psychology Today profile will come up. And so then you can reach out to me through that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mhm.
And one more question. What resources do you recommend for people who want to learn more about their parenting style, this parenting style?
Yeah. So one book that I love, and I love the title of it too, is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. I think it's so fantastic. It's
Yes.
very much like respecting your child, like listening to them, like encouraging them to solve problems on their own, so not just like jumping in there to rescue them, and to shut them down, honestly, because once you're coming in there with all your solutions, they're like, okay, I'm just gonna, okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
so
And I think
I love that book.
I love that book too. And I like that book for people who have young kiddos, because the last thing you have the last thing you have is time to sit down and read. I know I listened to that on audio, and I
Mhm.
love that they give you the verbiage of what to say in that moment. And then you start to build your choice of words, and you start to build how you communicate with the child. But yes, that is such a great book to
Yeah.
help with.
Yeah, it's very much like less is more too. Like the less that I say in this moment, the more I let my child speak.
Right, absolutely. For someone who is just learning about gentle parenting, is it ever too late to start with an older kid? What is the first step they should take?
It's never too late. No, I think it's great at any age. And we have talked a lot today about like coming back and apologizing. And so even having a moment with your child where you say, there have been some times when I have yelled at you, when I have been really heavy handed with you, and I wish that I had done that differently. And not
Yeah.
I should have done that differently. We never, should. It's just I wish that I had done that differently. Um,
Yes.
so connecting with your child, saying, I'm going to do better from here on out. I was doing the best I can. Now the best I can is better. So I'm going to do it better.
And that's all we can do. That's all
Hmm.
we can do. This whole gentle parenting journey has been such a great positive thing for me personally, for my marriage, and for my family. And it's such a beautiful thing. I truly believe in it. I see the results. And I am now on that point of life where I want to shout on the rooftop of how great this is. If you have the team and the desire and the respect to make changes in your family, it can happen, and it will happen if you just stick to the guideline of gentle parenting.
Right. And like gentle parenting is a little bit harder, to be more intentional, to be more thoughtful at the beginning, but it pays off so much at the end. Like parenting is so much easier as you go along because that connection does all the heavy lifting for you. Not all the heavy lifting, but a lot of the heavy lifting.
Right.
So you're not having these like interactions where I'm having to correct them all the time because they're doing it themselves. You're
Right.
not having these like teenagers who are moody and running off and doing drugs and stuff. Like you have these teenagers who want to hold your hand in the parking lot.
Right.
So it pays off. It's a little bit like the work's a little front loaded, but then it just really pays off.
Yeah. And I always say it's important to invest now so that you can coast later.
Yes, I love this.
Give them the tools and strategies, because I didn't learn any of this until I was like 30. So
Mhm.
if my kids have an upper hand in life because they are able to self-regulate, because they know respect, and because they can communicate, that is the best gift to give your child.
Oh my gosh, completely.
Totally. Well, thank you so much, Megan. It was great catching up with you.
Yeah.
We appreciate all of your guidance and your education, and I hope that with this interview we can change some more families. And we always like to say, remember, progress, not perfection, because you always have to do it better.
Yes, love it. Thank you, Kristen, for having me. I'm so glad you're doing this. What a great project.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the support, and yeah, we're gonna change lives.
Yeah, good.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Megan. It was good seeing you.
Of course, good to see you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you to our sponsor, KVJ Marketing, the premier marketing partner for small to medium businesses. Find them at kvjmarketing.com.